Okay, there. My name is Pat Marchitoledo, and I have some very important information concerning microchips and brain implants that have been found in people in Sweden at the mental hospitals and psychiatrists who have been working on these people since 1950. And they found that in mental institutions and hospitals, people have been implanted.
It's electrical. We can't do it.
Please stop talking in the back. Please stop talking in the back. Shh. Can't hear you up here. Thank you. We have new important information on biomedic training on brain transmitter implants. Now, this came from a Swedish article that is in the Planetary Association for Clean Energy, Volume 6, 2-3, page 25. It's in the missing link, and it's number 118 of the July 1992 issue of the missing link out of Washington. And it's page 20. Now, they say that in Sweden, they have been implanting people, mental patients and prisoners, hardcore prisoners, since the 50s with brain transmitters against their own knowledge that they have been implanted in most cases. Dr. Stuart Mackey, formerly with the University of California at Berkeley, states that if it gives biologists a background in electronics to enable them to choose equipment. And the book's introduction continues. Among the many telemetry instruments being used today are miniature radio transmitters that can be swallowed. If anybody saw that new movie out called The Fortress, you saw it in there 2 months ago. It can also be carried externally or surgically implanted in a man or animal. Recent developments may include radio devices for free-swimming dolphins, units for tracking wild animals, and pill-sized transmitters of many designs and functions that can operate for several years. They permit the simultaneous study of behavior and psychological functioning of the person or animal. The scope of operation is too broad to more than hint with a few examples. Possibilities are limited only to the imagination of the investigator. In Samuel Chapkin's book, The Mind Stealers, if you can find it, 1978, says that with advances in miniaturization, new self-contained instruments could be devised capable of receiving anything, analyzing, and sending back information to the brain, establishing artificial links between unrelated cerebral areas, functional feedbacks, and programs of simultaneous contingent on the appearance of predetermined wave patterns. And that's how they do it. The book's preface discusses psychosurgery and mind control, noted that telemetry for the surveillance of every citizen is on the drawing boards. What does that mean? That means that they're going to have you hooked up with something and put something inside of you, or give you something that you have to have on you all the time. And they'll know exactly where you're at every minute of the day. Every day of the year, week, month, years. Mind control techniques could become standard equipment for government, prison, police departments, and anybody else that would like to control you. Now, this came out in 1978, and it's in his book, Samuel Chapkin, and that's what they've been working on for the last 15 years. Swedish government silence. In 1985, a letter by representatives of various Swedish human rights groups, legal technical professionals, was sent to the Attorney General asking whether the implantation of brain transmitters was a crime or not. Was it a crime or wasn't it? This letter was not responded to directly. They wouldn't answer it, but referred to the district attorney, who determined that the matter not be considered a crime. It's not a crime to implant you. That was in 1985, almost 10 years ago. So that gave them the opportunity to do it. Now, I've heard various rumors, but I'll just tell you, it's possible that they could easily put a little transmitting device in the new medical card that you're going to get with the new medical countrywide medical plan that's going through with our president and Mrs. Clinton. And they would know where you are every minute of the day. There are similar signs here and now, like in Germany during the 1930s, where the country's leading doctors and politicians see individuals as objects of experimentation, where their brains and behavior are changed, wrote Samuel Chapman. Now, this is a photograph, a picture of one of the early transmitters. Can you see it? It's very small. You see it? Looks like an umbrella, but it's very, very small. No, that's the actual transmitting device. It's like an umbrella, a little mushroom.
Where is it though?
Yes, it does look like it's inside the ear, but this is I believe an X-ray. Typical brain transmitting device implanted in a Swedish citizen. X-ray analysis, Dr. Lindstrom of California, who observed, there is no excuse for doctors to implant brain transmitters in people's heads. End of quote. That was a quote. Now, this was, I think this was back in the 70s, this little umbrella or mushroom-shaped device. But since then, I found out at the MUFON conference in Chicago, I met a man from Washington State. Matter of fact, he was the state director at the time, maybe he still is, with MUFON. And he showed me a brand new brain transmitting device. And it's exactly the size of a grain of rice. And all I do is implant it underneath your skin. And it could be in your head, or it could be on your another part of your body, where you may not even know, but you feel it, and probably, unless they plant it underneath your skin a little deeper, and then you wouldn't know it's there. A little grain of rice, that's all. And why would they do this? You know, it's where the government wishes to control people. Maybe not everybody, maybe they do want to do it with everyone, but with the New World Order impending, and with Bill Clinton's money already printed for the New World Order, according to Ralph Nader, who admitted it on television, that he saw the new bills with Bill Clinton's picture on it. He says that it could be that they are going to do this with every person. Now, in any case, the Wall Street Journal of May 14th, 1992, announced that a Harvard doctor offers trauma relief for UFO abductees. And it's right on the front page, goes right on down the other side, and it continues on the page 7, A7, for another long section here. And it says a Harvard psychiatrist is offering trauma relief for those once abducted by extraterrestrials. And it announces that they're offering relief, and also that Dr. David Pritchard and of MIT, and Dr. James E. Mack of Harvard University are having this secret conference up in MIT, which happened last June of 1992. And it was an invitation-only conference. Nobody could pay to get in, and it was only open for the people that are doing research in this field, abduction cases. Psychiatrists, psychologists from all over the country and the world were there, and many people that were in ufology and in the abduction research. Dr. Dave Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, and many other people went. My talk was put together and was presented at the conference, and it was called Brain Scan Anomalies of Two UFO Abductees. And it became one of the more exciting talks of the entire conference, according to Dr. David Pritchard. And he had me on the phone several times since then, wanting the actual MRI scans, which I have gotten, of the anomalies that we found in the brains of two people that have been abducted all their lives. So what happened, how we came and arrived at getting the MRI scans is very interesting. I had started a group back in 1985 with every month meeting at the Trenton, New Jersey library of Hamilton Township. And over the years, we've had maybe 20, 25 abductees, which we knew were coming to our meetings every month, month after month after month. And these people, they can't get enough information on UFOs. So they're sort of drawn to us. And Whitley Strieber, who wrote the book Communion and Transformation, called me while he was doing his research on brain scan anomalies and MRI scans, and wanted to work with me on getting two people from my group to come to New York City and have their MRIs done. So I agreed, and we set a date, and I chose two people, and they came with me and agreed to the MRI scans. And when we got there, we went into the doctor's office, and each one was consulted before they went into the MRI. And the doctor asked one of them, where do you feel you're getting the strange thoughts from that you have and that you receive? And do you know what it's meant by strange thoughts? In other words, they're doing the dishes, and all of a sudden, planning dinner, and all of a sudden, they get this thought coming in. Go to the living room window. It's more of a command rather than a thought, but they go to the living room window and they look up, and there's the UFO, and they get a second thought. Go to get in your car and drive down this road, and lo and behold, it leads to an abduction. And this is how they contact their people. So anyway, the doctor says, where do you feel you're getting the strange thoughts in your mind? And one said that she's getting them right here. And she pointed just like this to the doctor. And the doctor said, okay, let's check out and go through the MRI. Well, about 2 hours later, when the MRIs were finished, the doctor had him up against the light box, and we were looking at it, and he pointed out that this was the center of the head, and right there was a 3 millimeter whitish sphere, which the doctor said this shouldn't be there, and they don't have any explanation of why it is there. And he circled it, and well, on another MRI scan, he pointed to it, and he blew it up and pointed to that also. And the woman that called me, this woman called me many, many times, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And she was very, very upset, and got worse and worse, and to a point after a week where she was almost ready to commit suicide. And she told me right on the phone she wanted to talk to somebody about this. And what tipped it off was the fact that she had lost control of her life. In other words, the whoever it is that came in could come in anytime during the night and take her out, and she'd be missing for 2 hours and not know where she was, but she'd be aching and have all these tremendous nightmares and the trauma that's associated with it, and wouldn't know what to do about it. But the clincher was when her 3 or 4 year old son came walking into her bedroom 4 o'clock in the morning the night before, and said, "Mommy, I'm scared. I was just with these little people on board a spaceship." And that's when she found out that her little son was also being abducted and taken on board by these little gray creatures. So she thought that she not only had she lost her control over her life, but she is also has lost the control over her son's life, and she wanted to commit suicide over this because she didn't know of any other way out. Needless to say, I was on the phone with her for an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, and she would be calling me 2 or 3 times a week during this period of time in her life. And I helped her out and tried to get her to understand what was going on, and she became more acceptable to the idea. And once she opened up her mind and understood what I told her, and that this was happening to her and what was happening to her, then she finally calmed down to a point where she was able to control at least the part of her life that she could control, and she could live with it. And that's what all the abductees are trying to do, live with this problem. Now, the other girl that I took, doctors asked her to into the consultation room, was talking to her and everything, and they asked her, "Where do you feel you're getting the strange thoughts from?" And this girl said, "Right back behind my nose, about an inch between my eyes." And she said it vibrates sometimes, it buzzes, it hums, and it makes her sneeze sometimes 20 times in a row. It's really weird, but that's where she's getting her strange thoughts from. So they went into the MRI room, and 2 hours later, the MRI on the light box, there it was. This was a large U-shaped, 28 to 30 millimeter U-shaped whitish area right next to her nose, about an inch in between her eyes. And you'll see it on the MRI scans that I brought to show you on my slides. So the doctor knew that the person knew exactly where these thoughts were coming from, and there was definite evidence that there is something there. And the doctor said that should not be there. He didn't know what it was, couldn't give me any idea of what it was, and said it definitely shouldn't be there. So he said that it was in there so long in this case that it had to be put in there in her young childhood, because her nose bone actually curved around it in development. Unbelievable. And this lady has been regressed to when she was 7 years old, and with Dr. David Jacobs, and regressed and found out that there was an abduction case when she was dying of diphtheria and cured of diphtheria that night, the night that the doctor came to the house and told her parents that she was probably not going to make it through the night. That night she was cured by angels that came into her room. That's all she remembered. She remembered being picked up out of her bed, 7 years old, in Philadelphia, and she turned around and looked at the angel and remembered the face. He put a luminous belt around her, and with that, he slowly edged towards the window. She could see a tremendous raging thunder and lightning storm outside, and this luminous belt was glowing, sort of, and as they were approaching the closed window, the angel carrying her just sort of started going right through the window, and it was a tingling sensation she felt as she went through the window. And then he carried her over the second floor bedroom window, over a tree, and down about 5 row houses down into a backyard, which was full of light. And they were coming down and down towards the light. And as they approached this large light, which took up the entire backyard of this row house, the width, there was a black hole. It looked like a door opening or some kind of opening. And they floated into it, and he placed her on the table, and with Dr. Jacobs regressing her, came out that this ended up a complete, total normal abduction case, where they physically examined her and everything. All the girl remembered was that they was being lifted up by the angel in her bedroom and putting this luminous belt and going towards the window and seeing the tremendous raging thunder, lightning storm. All the rest came out on the other through David Jacobs' regression, and from the inside of the window on was the rest of the story that came out. And then she understood what happened to her and how she was cured. Now they went farther, and Dr. Jacobs asked her to continue her regression, and we found out that they took her inside. They did a physical, starting with her feet. They completely checked out her feet, went up her legs, all the way up to her throat and her eyes and her nose and her head. And they then told her that she has a mission in life to do, and they have to cure her of this diphtheria. And they lifted her up off the table, asked her to get up, lifted her, and she stood up, and they walked into another room. And there was this tall glass chamber or tube like going from the floor to the ceiling, and on the top of it was a real large blue light, and bright blue light, and there was a little doorway, and she said she was afraid to go in there because it wasn't even big enough for her to get in, and the glass tube was small. So she was afraid. They said, you have to go in there. And these are the gray guys, the little gray men, that said that she has to go in there because we have to cure you because you have a mission in life to do. And they sort of pushed her in through the door, and she stood up, and then they closed the door, and the thing was turned on, and this blue light got brighter and brighter and brighter and came down lower and lower over her head. So it was right above her head, and beams of bluish light, fluid, liquid light, she called it, started going through her body. And obviously it wiped out all the bacteria, all the germs, and all the disease of the diphtheria in her body. And they placed her back in bed, and she woke up the next morning, and she was completely cured. She jumped out of bed and said, Mommy, I'm starving. Here she was bedridden for 3 days before that. She couldn't get out of bed and the doctor came to the house for the last 10 days and said that night in the hallway that to her parents that she probably wouldn't make it through the night. But that shows you the control they have over us. And all the abductees, I would assume, probably can't cope with it until they learn more about the subject and search for answers and get the answers so that they can understand how to continue their life and what perspective it has in their life. And they can put it into place and continue on with their life. We start with the slides. The rover poll, well, unusual personal experiences came out probably a year ago now, and it was put out by the Roper organization, and wait a minute. And it actually was 3 different studies that they had done and others had done concerning abduction cases and similar to abduction cases. And they ended up saying that, they sent it out in the first place to 100,000 health professionals in the country. psychiatrists, psychologists, and doctors who were interested in this. And five questions were given in the test as to qualify the participant, whether they were being abducted or not. First one was waking up paralyzed with a sense of a strange person or presence or someone else in their bed, in their room. Second would be experiencing a period of time of an hour or more in which they had apparently lost and but couldn't remember why or where you had been. And the third one was feeling that you were actually flying through the air, although you didn't know why or how. And the fourth one was if they've seen unusual lights or a ball of light in the room without knowing what was causing them or where they came from. And the fifth one, final one, was finding puzzling scars on your body. And neither you nor anyone else remembers how you received them or how you got those scars. Some surprising results emerged. 18% of those polled reported awakening up at one time or another in a paralyzed state with a sense of someone other in the presence of their room. That's 185 million people of the adult population, which means that 33% of the 33 million people had felt paralyzed. 13% reported missing time, which means 24 million people have felt that they had missing time. 10% reported a feeling of flying. 8% had encountered balls of light in their room, which they couldn't explain. 2% of these polled responded positively to 4 or more of the 5 target questions suggestive of an abduction experience. And this represents a staggering 3.7 million individuals who may have been abducted in the United States. It's a staggering amount of people, and the people that realize it now are just the tip of the iceberg. As you can see, there's only 50 people in this room. Not all of them have been abducted, but that's out of millions and millions and millions of people who are interested in UFOs and wanted to come for some answers to this conference. So that's what the report came out. Unusual personal experiences. That's what they came. That was the conclusion. I wanted to give you a few pictures of UFOs, and I was going to start with this, forgot. But anyway, this is some that you have never seen before, probably. And this is a 1710 painting. Let me dim the lights now. 1710 painting. That's in the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, England, and it's called the baptism of Jesus with heavenly host. Isn't that beautiful? And there's a circular disc up in the sky, and actually it's a white dove underneath the disc, and there's 4 rays of light coming down on the baptism.
What museum is it in?
It's in the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, England.
How do you know who the painter is?
The painter is Art DeWolder.
What's the name of the painting?
The baptism of Jesus with heavenly hosts.
By whom?
by Art D. Gilder, D-E, capital G-U-I-L-D-E-R. Wrong way. This is the oldest photograph known of a unidentified flying object, or I should say a spaceship in this case. 1883, this photograph was taken, and it was taken by Jose Vanilla, the director of the Zacatecas, Mexico Astronomical Observatory. The director. His he had a witness to this also, and they were looking through the telescope at sunspots, and all of a sudden this cricket-shaped object came across the disk. And then it was followed by two more, and then three more, and a procession started. And it ended up going from one side to the disk to the other side of the disk. And it continued going and going, and until he counted over 283 in the first 4 hours while he was watching it with his and assistant. He sent runners to other observatories for them to look at the objects also at the sun. He went to sleep for 4 hours, and when he woke up, they were still crossing the sun's disk. They were disc-shaped, circular objects, spindle-shaped, and cigar-shaped objects. 1883. When he woke up, there was another 200 and some that he counted in the next 4 hours as they were parading across the sun's disk for all of mankind to see. It was like an entire civilization had to get up off their planet and leave because maybe their planet died and they couldn't sustain life anymore, and they had to find a new place to live. It was an unbelievable story.
Did other observatories see it also?
Who?
Did other
The other observatories were told of it, but when they went out to do it, the clouds had rolled over and they couldn't get through the clouds, couldn't see through them. So there's two witnesses to this. What's that? Of course not. These are ants in a procession of over 400 objects in 8 hours.
It's about 10 miles long.
He estimated that this was probably about 300,000 miles out and approximately 10 miles in diameter or in length. Each spaceship or each ship. Yeah,
That light spot
yes,
is one,
that's one.
like they're evacuating.
Yeah, like they were evacuating their planet and had to leave. Maybe their sun was going to blow up and become a supernova. And they were on, a planet close to the sun. They had to vacate.
What planet is this?
This is a well-known UFO photograph. It was a small object, and I believe it was in Oregon. And several pictures were taken, or 2 pictures were taken going through the field. There's another case. I'm not going to go into the case. This is the Junge case, so a rare photograph of 2 UFOs. This is another of the 2, 4 that were taken. This is the Trinidad Island case with a Brazilian photographer of the Brazilian Navy on a ship took this photograph, and everybody on board the ship was out on deck watching this Saturn-shaped UFO flying up to Trinidad Island and then over it, making a loop and then heading towards the ship as if to really tell them that it's there. That's what it looked like. That's a blow up of the This is the Ipamiri, Brazil case, 1966. This is a one with a red cupola on top. This is from Dr. David Jacobs. He gave me this, Temple University. It's another one of his cases from a person that was abducted, remembers this and drew it under hypnosis. This is a mysterious photograph. Woman was hiking in the hills, and I believe this was Oregon. And she had a camera strapped to her neck, and all of a sudden it started flashing away. And it took two or three pictures, and she lifted it up and looked at it, and it stopped. Put it back down. And 3 weeks later, when she got it developed, here this was right in the dead center of the photographs. Spaceship up in the sky as she was climbing the mountain. That's all she knows about it. This one was sitting here, and all of a sudden it took off. It lowered itself and then took off straight up.
Where was that from?
I'm not sure. This one was taken over in Wanakee Reservoir, New Jersey. It's a UFO showing a beam shooting down to the lake, reservoir, and probably picking up water. There's a blow up of it. This also happened in Pennsylvania, one of the lakes there.
What year was that, Pat?
I think it was 67. 66 and 67, they had thousands of people who were watching these over Wanakee River, Wanakee Reservoir. It was so prominent and in the newspapers that 20 policemen at once watched it with the police chief, and they couldn't believe their eyes. This one is in another dimension, so to speak. You can see it here. It's covering up the. You can almost see the. You can actually see the steel through the spaceship, but there's no outline. This is one that was sitting here and then went straight up.
What is that called? That one?
What's it called? I don't know. What do you mean what it's called?
Who took the photo? Where is it?
Oh, I'm not sure of all that. This is Gordon Cooper, our famous astronaut, who was up in space, and when he was flying in a formation and saw many flights of UFOs over their base back in early 1950. He felt so strongly about the UFOs and about extraterrestrials that he went to that conference at the UN when they had it back in 1978 with Dr. Hynek and Jacques Vallée, and many famous researchers were there. And he gave a tremendous 2-page statement concerning the extraterrestrials are here, and that we should straighten out and begin to accept them and work with them. This is a photograph coming back from space, an official NASA photograph. And it shows 2 UFOs. One's a donut shaped, and I have a couple other cases of donut shaped craft. And this one on the bottom, a bell shape. And both of them on the bottom show a reddish hue, possibly from their propulsion. This was taken by the Apollo 12 astronauts coming back from the moon as they were heading towards and re-entering Earth.
Has that ever been released before?
Yes, it was released, and it's in Tim Beckley's UFO Universe. This is a photograph of a UFO November 12th, 1966. Gemini 12. That's a blow up of it. It's like two lights flying together. This is in the book UFOs Past, Present, and Future. Several massive photographs of UFOs are in it. This is a Skylab UFO. This was taken during Gemini 11, 1966. And it changed shape. And they took two photographs that we know of as it changed shape. Pete Conrad took these photographs, I believe. Oh, yeah. Oh. They didn't know what it was. They took pictures of it. This is another two photographs taken. By our astronauts. This is James McDivitt's photograph of a UFO in space, or while he was out in space. The egg shape is with a contrail. The egg shape is about 2 blocks away, according to Dr. James Harder, University of California. It's the size of a car, about 2 blocks away. And the contrail has got a, like, similar to a blue flame, blue wispy flame behind it. Now, actually, James McDivitt saw something else. He says he saw a cylindrical shaped object with an antenna-like extension out the top of it, sort of like like pencil points or an antenna sticking out from the top of it, cylindrical shaped object. Now, when his pictures went into NASA, they never came out. And weeks or months later, NASA finally released the other egg-shaped object, which McDivitt didn't even know about. But it was an unknown. Everybody hears about Dr. J. Allen Hynek and his photograph, but nobody knows about his photograph that he took of a UFO. He actually took two of this UFO. And he took it while he was flying down to South America. To a convention down there. He saw this thing out his plane window and had time to reach down on the floor and pick up his camera, adjust it, and take a photograph, and then turn it, and then take another photograph. And then he looked to see it, and within a second, it took off and vanished. But it looks like it has two fins.
Gotta get Phil Class to take one now, we'll be all set.
This is a dogfight over Puerto Rico with a UFO coming in from the ocean onto the island, and the two jets were blocking it by cutting it off. Were blocking it from coming over the island. Two towns were watching this happen, and we have counted over. Well, there was 60 witnesses up to 2 years ago. There's over 100 witnesses now, according to Jorge Martin, the MUFON representative down there, and the jets were cutting it off at both angles, this way and this way and this way and this way. And finally, as the people were watching, all of a sudden, as one of the planes came to the side of the UFO and brushed up towards it, at the end, the people heard the jet roar, and then silence, complete silence, as it was ended right next to the spaceship, just as if it disappeared. And then the second one came and was cutting it off, and when its roar, when the plane came right next to the ship, it cut off and disappeared also. They feel that they were taken on board and were abducted, so to speak, transported on into the inside of the UFO. This was a gigantic UFO, according to Jorge. It might have been 20 times larger than the jets, maybe larger. That was in 1988, by the way, and it happened again in 1989. These are some famous abductees: Charles Hickson and Betty Hill and Travis. They each have their own story and each have all their own problems that they had to overcome once their life was changed. This is Charles Hickson's spaceman. Michael Rogers I met last week up in Connecticut at the Omega conference. This is his drawing of what he saw, what Travis Walton saw, according to Travis's detailed, description. Charles Moody was also abducted he was in the Army when he was abducted, and they looked similar. This is another ET out of the collection of Dr. David M. Jacobs.
What were the symbols underneath that?
We don't know. This is a comparison between Charles Hickson's spaceman that abducted him and Calvin Parker and the chief of the Folksville, Alabama police chief, Greenshaw, Chief Greenshaw. He was called by three farmers, three different farms, told that a ship or some lights were flying around their homes and their fields. So he got in his police car, took off, and saw it. And he was coming up the road when it landed, and this being was walking down the road towards him as he was driving towards the three farms and towards the craft that landed. He stopped the police car at an angle on the road, took a photograph 20 feet away, took another photograph of it 15 feet away, and took another photograph 10 feet away. Then he took a fourth photograph, and he got scared, and he pushed the button to turn his blue lights going on. That scared the ET. He jumped up and threw his arms up, and he started running back up the road. And he said, "Holy cow, what I do?" So he turned the car. He turned the car back on the road and started heading up towards him. And he couldn't. He was running so fast he couldn't catch up to him. And then he ran off the road towards the spaceship, and he watched the thing take off. This is another ET drawn by an abducted person. It's another one. See the large ears and the tail? See the fingers?
You see it go on the back like arms.
Yeah, this could be a robot. There's a light on its head, and on the back, it looks like controls.
That's why it's real on a robot.
Or it could be a life support system of communication device.
Could be that too. There's a tail. I don't know why they would put that
That
on
could
the
be a
robot.
promotion for New Hamburger stand.
This is Richard Glenn's two ETs. This is a reptilian, and the other is a gray, which abducted his wife out of bed while he was in bed with them, and he saw them but became paralyzed. That's why he was able to make up the masks, heads out of rubber of these aliens. And he produced a TV show every week up in Canada since 1976. And at one of his conferences, he had two children walk with the masks on onto the stage just to show the people what they look like. This is Alice Haggerty's drawing of a spaceship that she saw coming over the Garden State Parkway. Big front window up front, big red light up front and in the back, and yellow lights all around, and at 3 or 4 points around the side are real bright. And they had 3 tiers of things coming down from the bottom of it. And it looked like steel girding structured here. And they were circular. That's the bottom view. The steel girders with the 3 tiers of circular bottom projection. Her mother saw this along with her, and 4 or 5 other cars pulled in behind them. They got out of the car to watch this thing, and it was as wide as the entire width of the Garden State Parkway, down about 10 miles north of Cape May. This is the instrument which was used to place a place of an implant up the nose of an abductee. In Alice's case, it was hers. This is where they held it, and the baby was placed on the other end. It was bendable, pliable, but it hurt her, and she was scared of it. Still is. And the wand is a device 14 inches long, which they used to, she didn't really know, but I guess to check her health while she was laying on the table inside the craft. This came out through the regression with Dr. Jacobs. This is the cleansing machine where she was cured of diphtheria that night when she was taken by angels. The blue light was all the way up top, and it came down up to the top of her head, and beams of liquid light just flowed through her body.
Someone once mentioned in your book.
Yes, she's in the Secret Light. Dr. Jacobs. New book. This is her Trucks in the Sky dream. There's a being in the front window chasing her down the street. Radar up on top, what she thought was radar. Looked like a trailer, tractor trailer. This is a trailer flying through the sky. In this case, we were on vacation in about 50 miles outside of LA on a cliff in a state park. And these 2 beautiful UFOs came down. This came out through Allison's regression because it's in any case, the one, a being came out, a gray, came out up to our tent and looked in through the screen. And Alice was awoken, and she was in a kneeling position. And that's when he beamed her through the tent into the outside. And she was still in a kneeling position. And what happened was she woke up. Well, we woke up the next morning. I didn't know anything about this, but we woke up the next morning, and Alice had cactus and leaves, dead dry leaves and grass all over her pant legs, her slacks, from her knees down. We couldn't, and she was in a sleeping bag. And we couldn't understand how the heck, she didn't have it on before she went to bed. And here she woke up, and there was these dead cactus and leaves and dead leaves and grass all over her legs, pant legs, as she's coming out of the sleeping bag that morning. So I just wrote it down, and finally, a couple months later, when we went back to Dr. Jacobs, we went back to that time because it was a weird occurrence, and found out that Alice was affected that night. This is a drawing of the eye of the captain of the ship, or the doctor. who is over 6 foot tall, looks like an Indian. Big flat nose, red skin, reddish skin, just like an Indian, a big flat nose, real large on the bottom, a big square jaw. And this is a drawing of the ship showing the ramp on the bottom that she was walked up with the two gray guys. And this is another story. Alice, when she's taken on board, is made to go into this room, and a glass, kind of what looks like glass, comes up out of the floor of this room, and it comes up about 3 foot high. She's made to grab it with her fingers out drawn, and when she grabs it, little sparkles of blue light jump out of her fingertips and into this glass tube, and they start going down into the center of the cone and go down into through the tube and into the bottom of the floor, or bottom of this tube. And what we think it is a storage place where they store mother's love or life energy while the mother is not on board the ship. And while the babies need it in order to continue living. If they couldn't get it, the babies would die. Okay, this is how one of the things that, which is a doctor's report, and this is from the Medical Center of Tarzana in California. And she had a CAT scan done in 1986, and it showed this 3 millimeter sphere right in the center of her head on the CAT scan. 1986. And it's a normal, everything is normal except for that. And they put that in there in the bottom under the impression. It says a 3 millimeter nodule in the left lobe of the pituitary gland. Otherwise, a normal study. But there it is, right in the center of her head, the pituitary gland. This is the doctor's report from the CAT scan. She was having tremendous headaches and problems. This is the CAT scan. I'm not sure, but I believe this is a 3 millimeter white sphere. Now, when we went with Whitley Strieber to the New York MRI doctors, this is what an MRI scan looks like. And what it does is slices through your brain 15 times. It x-rays 15 times at different levels spaced through your brain. Now here, the doctor points in the blow-ups of the anomaly, which is in Colette's, in the center of her head. And it's circled on the other side. Now these are the eyes, the nose. As you can see, it's right directly in the center of her head, right exactly where she's getting the strange thoughts that come into her mind all her life. This is Dr. Messina and the other doctors which checked the MRI scans and their impression. And it again says the 3 millimeter zone of high intensity. That's the doctor's report. Doctor said it shouldn't be there, and they don't know why it is there. They don't know what it is either. This is Alice's MRI, and it shows up here and over here. This is a blow up right between her eyes, about an inch in from her nose, you see? It's a large U-shaped area that the doctor pointed to. It doesn't come up too good. If you're not a doctor, you wouldn't notice it, but it is only on one side of the nose. Now that was the first echo. This is the second echo. It showed up on two. It was so large, it showed up on two of her 15 scans of x-rays. See it?
No, you should do it again.
What?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it. It's the large U-shaped area next to her nose in between
Right.
her eyeballs.
It's bright.
Oh, okay. I see.
These are her
Yeah,
eyes.
it's bigger than that.
Yeah, that's very large. What?
So it looks even bigger than that. See it like the oval outline?
Yeah, it's very large.
It's
Doctors
not
couldn't
hollow in
believe
the
it.
middle like you though. It's not hollow in the middle like you. It's solid, right?
I don't know.
I mean, it looks.
I'm not a doctor.
There's a gray area in between that indicates that it may be U-shaped.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the white indicates density, which means it's at least as dense as bone.
That's exactly where Alice receives her thoughts, strange thoughts that come into her mind. Now, this is the first physical evidence that we have that are linking up abduction cases with scientific evidence of something being there that shouldn't be there, at least with the doctors and that's what they say. And we have some evidence now, and we are working with other people to find other MRI scans throughout the country of other abductees. And I did locate a couple on my trips out to Phoenix and to Richmond and the conferences that I go to. I'm finding people that are working with me on finding other ones, other people with this trouble.
Could that be reached through the nasal cavity? I mean,
No, you can't get through it through the nasal cavity. In both cases, if the doctors were to operate and try and remove it, it would probably end the life of the person. Okay. This is a landing spot, other physical evidence of a UFO landing. It's a whitish area which nothing grows on for years and years and years later. But this was right after the spaceship landed. There was even a glow to it, which shows up here on this night view. In the evening, you can see the glow, and the glow jumps out of the ground about 3 foot high and makes it similar to a hazy area of the entire circle. What?
Where is it?
Oh, this was the famous case of Delphos, Kansas. This won the award of the National Enquirer for physical evidence from a UFO during one of the years when they were trying to find physical evidence and awarding $5,000 a year for the best story they could get, showing the physical evidence.
That green,
Yes,
the lights, that actually the place, that the lights.
the glowing lights did. After about 2 months, there was no more glowing coming up out of the ground. But the grass never went back. Now, I don't know if it's back now. This happened in 1975, I believe. This 25 years later, 20 years later, I'm not sure whether there's grass now, but for 10 years at least, nothing would grow on that ring. And soil samples were taken, and they took soil samples of the ring here, and other locations around it and inside of it. And the soil samples in the ring or around the ring would not support any growth of life. But the control around the ring supported a lot of growth.
So
Of
any
grass.
radiation or anything?
No, there was no radiation in it. No, no radiation. What happens is the soil taken out of the ring is so extremely dry that it just does not accept any moisture. It doesn't have the ability to accept moisture anymore. So you can drop a hunk of dirt into the water. It'll sit there for weeks at a time. It's just unbelievable. It doesn't form mud, so it finally sink. You know what I mean?
That's missing organic matter?
Here it is. Here's the control samples, and here's where the soil sample was, where they're from the ring, and the other is from outside the ring, showing the growth of the plants. Here's more physical evidence. This is a ring around the belly button of a boy, a young 10-year-old boy that saw a UFO and told his parents, and told the police and everything, and went to the hospital, and this ring was there around his navel. It's a reddish ring, looks like about 2 inches around his navel, around his belly button. And they say it was radiation poisoning in some of these cases. This is one case. Some other cases, it's not. They don't know what it is, but it isn't radiation. This is a triangle-shaped area around the belly button. What it seems to me is we've had a lot of abduction cases where a woman is given a needle through the belly button, a long needle for a pregnancy test. But these two are men. Maybe they give the same or a test to men and go through the same entrance point. But these people here got sick from it and were sick for months and months at a time. This is a piece of physical evidence that Dr. James Harder had scientifically analyzed. And it's actually 2 pieces. It's a couple inches long. And it's you can see the X's on it where they tested it and everything. There's substantial evidence that there's many, many unknowns in this piece of metal. They don't know what it is. There's many parts of different metals, but there are also a lot of unknowns which are in it that they don't know. This is the Ubatuba, Brazil case, probably the most famous piece of physical evidence that we have from a spaceship. It's 1 3/4 inches long, but what the story behind this is, in Ubatuba, Brazil, fishermen were out fishing on the bay. They're swimmers on the beach, also swimming. And this big ball of light came flying out of the sky real fast. And they thought it was a meteor. They thought it was going to crash into the bay, right onto their ships and everything, their boats or rowboats and stuff that they were fishing. And all of a sudden, I don't know how high, probably 50 foot off of the surface of the water, it made a tremendous U-shaped turn and began going up again, as if they had just regained control of the ship. And all of a sudden, it exploded into a million pieces of flaming bits of metal that fell down and rained down on the fishermen in the rowboats. They were getting burned by it. They saved many pieces of this, not many, but 1 or 2 made it to APRO, Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. And they had it analyzed by 3 different scientific laboratories, and every one of them was the same. It was 99.95% magnesium. Now, in 1957, mankind was only able to produce 65% pure magnesium. And this was almost 100% pure magnesium. This was total physical evidence from another place outside of Earth. But you don't read that in the books. I mean, nobody knows that. And it was silenced. But the early reports that came out of the scientific, well, from the letters and from the APRO report, gave the scientific results of all three of the labs, and said that it was 100%, almost 100% magnesium, and that the best that we could do, and that contained that was a high expensive processing to get up to 65% magnesium. Where do they come from? These are the ETs that are here. We have a lot of sketches. There's hundreds and hundreds of people that have been visited. Many of them drew sketches. In this case here, where the red spot is a brain that two men, John Rodriguez and another fellow, were in Dapple Gray Lane in California. Two brains were sitting on the road, about 3 feet off the road. And that's exactly what they saw. And the one fella dropped them off and went back and had to go around this thing, whatever it was, brain sitting in the middle of the road. But he got home 2 hours later and didn't realize it. But when he was regressed, he remembers being on board and everything else. And these are the people that he met with their 6 fingers, extremely long, thin fingers, claws, and weird shaped heads. On the other case, that's Betty Hill's drawing of the extraterrestrial that she saw. That's her description. So where do you think they come from?
Our solar system.
There's a lot of stars out there, and stars are suns like our sun, and many of them now, according to our astronomers, have planets around them. And all you need is one planet to have life going around the sun, like the Earth, out of the 9 planets that we have flying around our sun. This is the Andromeda galaxy. And this is one of the ETs, or maybe not ETs, but inside the Earth beings that have been witnessed. But anyway, we think they're here. And we think there's a lot of evidence that the people, or scientists, don't want to look at, or maybe they're told not to look at it by other people in the government that don't want us to know. And they want to control our lives so that we just work and continue the paycheck coming in each week and working for the solidity of the government and the Social Security and the job, and keeping the taxes going in, the income taxes. Anybody know where your income tax went last year? What'd the government do with it?
Pay the
Parties.
So,
Right.
They partied on Donald Trump's yacht.
Do you know how much money they get every year from us?
Yeah, they paid the interest on what we owe the people with the money.
we're thinking George Bush's son takes the money back.
It all went to Christie Brinkley
Savings and loans.
and bubblegum.
What do you think? Let me ask you a question. Can we have the lights, please?
You want this off now, Pat?
Let me ask you a question. What do you think the government is doing with all your money that you send in every year, year after year after year after year? They take 20%, 22%, 25% of your pay every year. Social Security is broke. Every month they have to be injected with new money in order to keep Social Security going. They've used up all the money, we think, on black projects. And they don't want to tell us anything about it because it'll change our entire way of life. And they don't want us to change. They want us just to keep sending in that money, working our jobs, and be slaves to the system. That's right. In the last 40 years, since the 1950s, I remember in Popular Mechanics, you would read Popular Mechanics vividly every week, every month when it came out. And in Popular Mechanics, they had where every man would have a little car that flew to work every year inside every garage of America by 1980s, 85. And they had high-speed lines of trains that did 500 miles an hour, 1,000 miles an hour. They had trains in 1951 that they projected to do 1,000 miles an hour and get you from New York to Los Angeles by magnetism in 3 hours from New York to Los Angeles. They had tunneling devices that were going to tunnel their way through, and they were going to use Amarillo as the braking point to start the braking system and slowing the train down to get to LA. That's how magnetism works. It builds up and builds up and builds up, and then you hit the brakes and you slow it down, and there you are in LA. 3 hours. Where is it? Popular Mechanics, 1955. What happened to it?
Japan has it,
Well,
but theirs are half the speed.
it's unbelievable.
The oil monopoly stopped that.
What other?
We had 100 mile per gallon cars in 1953 predicted by people like
That's right.
Buckminster Fuller.
And we're still
Every
driving
year,
30
every
miles.
year you've got sample supercars at the trade shows that do 100 and 200 miles per gallon. And where are they?
What about the electric cars that don't want?
Since the 1950s, what have we received to better our lives? And
Lucille Ball.
that's right, television. They wanted every television in every room so that you wouldn't think, so that you stop thinking, so that you start watching TV an hour a day. And it worked. 2 hours a day by the 1960s, 3 hours a day. You know what it's up to? It's up to 7 hours a day that our kids watch television. Now, who's the teacher? Who's the teacher of these kids?
Society,
They sleep for 8 hours a day, they go to school and they watch television 7 hours a day. So, what do they see on TV? They see people with drug problems, they see people robbing banks, they see cops and robbers, they see drugs, they see sex, they see people in bed having sex every damn hour. You can turn it on 10 o'clock in the morning. And this is all that's on television. Nothing exciting. You got to turn the Discovery Channel on for something that's exciting.
Educational channels.
That television is the worst thing that happened to this country. It stopped everybody from thinking. It kept us asleep for 40 years. What happened to the jet car? What happened to the little aerial car that everybody was going to have in every garage by the 1980s? What happened to that highway that we were going to drive down and didn't have to even look where we were going for an hour for 60 miles? They never even built that. Nothing was produced better for us than the television, and the VCR, things to use up our mind and have entertainment. Any questions? Yes.
What, last week or week before on 60 Minutes, anybody seen Andy Rooney's report about Camp David's?
Camp Davis?
Yes.
What was that?
Camp
60 Minutes?
David.
Anybody see that?
Camp David.
Camp David.
It's like he said, every president goes, it's supposed to be the presidential vacation area
Oh,
or
yeah.
something. And he ignored the sign and went down there, and the Marines turned him right away, and they asked for the film because they filmed the Marines approaching to their car, and they tricked the Marines and give an empty cartridge. And so he presented the film, how the Marines asking and coming and turning him back. Don't you see the sign? You're not supposed to come here. And he analyzed and said, "What is it? It's it's a vacation area. What's so big secret? So many 100 yards the road already signs out, don't enter, and so on." And said, "What is it?" That's the question.
About that. Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna have Joe Stabola come up and give us a talk.
Teams. He pushes a button and tapes start running, and I am starting to tingle. He is punching buttons on the machine through my mind somehow. He is telling me things. My mind hurts. He is telling me this is an observation craft with a crew of 4 men. He is communicating with you by voice or through his mind, Williams asked, and Shermer says it seems to be both methods. It appears they do all their speaking through the antenna devices on their helmet. The one who's talking, though, is speaking a broken English, and it's a very strange sounding and appears to be coming from deep inside of him rather than through his antenna. From where are they from? Williams asked. Patrolman Shermer says from a nearby galaxy, possibly the Andromeda Galaxy, we figure. They have bases on Venus and some of the other planets in our galaxy or solar system. Do they have bases on Earth for their saucers? Williams asked. Shermer says yes, there are definitely bases in the United States. One is located There's a base located beneath the ocean off the coast of Florida, which is a big thing. This would be used for our benefit and for theirs. There's a base in the polar region. He did not say whether it was North or South Pole. And there's another big base off the coast of Argentina. These bases are underground or underwater. Williams asks, how do their craft operate? Shermer says, the ship is operated through reversible electromagnetism. A crystal-like rotor in the center of the ship is linked to 2 large columns. He said these were the reactors. Reversing magnetic and electrical energy allows them to control matter and overcome the forces of gravity. How can radar knock them out? Williams asks. Shermer's response is ionization? Yes, that's the word. Ionization.
It's still on there.
Oh, wait, don't talk. It's on.
Wait.
Williams asks, what do you know about the motherships? Shermer, they are huge affairs. What we would call interplanetary stations. All of their headquarters type operations are carried out in them. They are the main observation stations, so high out in space that we cannot acknowledge them. The saucers arrive here by the motherships. They are then released to bases on Earth. Both motherships and saucers use light beams to look in on anything on Earth, into any factory, home, or house. They also monitor our Earth communication system. Aboard the ship is a disc-shaped object about 6 feet in diameter. The disc is used for remote-controlled reconnaissance and surveillance and transmits pictures and sound back to the vision screen. The crew leader flicks a switch and the screen comes on, revealing the outside of the craft. 2 of the crew are walking back and forth like guards. They are with a stiff military posture that reminds Shermer of men who have been in armed service a long time. The crew leader presses another button. 3 saucers off of a different shape appear flying in formation against a backdrop of stars that include the Big Dipper. Shermer is told that these are warships flying in outer space. The image has great depth and realism. Again, the crew leader shifts the pictures. The mother's craft comes into focus, cigar-shaped, very long, far above the Earth. The screen goes dark. Shermer is now given a demonstration of how electricity can be extracted from a nearby power line. Shermer says in his regression, he said I should look out one of the portholes. He pushed a button. I saw an antenna-like thing move down and around where it pointed at the power line. He must have pushed another button or something because there's a sudden white spurt of electricity. It shot out of the electrical line and went right up the tip of the antenna. He said for me to look at the dials on this one gauge, and they registered completely full now. He said they didn't take much electricity, but they have a problem storing it, so they take it from our power lines. Later, he puts the electricity back in the power line, and the gauge went down. Why extract small amounts of electricity from power lines? Williams asks. Shermer says, when they land, an invisible force field is thrown around the ship in a circular pattern. He said that the electromagnetic field is a defense mechanism. Did they mention anything about water? Asks Williams. Shermer said they asked about the Lincoln City water reservoir, which is just down the hill. In some way, which I do not understand, they draw a type of power from water. This is why we see them over rivers, lakes, and large bodies of water. How long have they been watching us? Asks Williams. Shermer says they have been observing us for a long period of time, and they think that if they slowly put out reports and have their contacts state the truth, it will help them. They have no pattern for contacting people. It is pure chance, so the government cannot determine any patterns about them. There will be a lot more contacts. They know they are being seen, and they're trying to confuse people, and he is telling me that they want everyone to believe in them, so they will have an open mind to their showing of themselves completely when they do come. Eric Norman had several long telephone conversations with Herbert Shermer. Eric Norman, whose real name is Warren Smith, was talking. They investigated the case and at the landing site found that there were 3 pointed marks where the tripod landing gear had sunk deep into the earth. Patches of grass had been swirled and twisted into odd patterns, Warren told Ralph Blum, as though the vegetation had been under powerful centrifugal pressure. Much of Shermer's story is in accord with current UFO speculation. The demonstration of energy being extracted from the power lines coincides with the suspicions that the UFOs sighted near high-tension wires in Niagara Falls and New York areas might have been responsible for the Great Northeast Blackout, and, of course, other power failures that have never been explained. Patrolman Shermer was told that all of the ships were made of 100% pure magnesium. A piece of such magnesium, purer than anything obtainable by our metallurgical processes here on Earth, was recovered when a saucer reportedly crashed or exploded in September 1957 near Ubatuba, Brazil. At that time, we could only make approximately up to 65% pure magnesium, but this was 100% magnesium that was found from the pieces that were scientifically analyzed from the Ubatuba, Brazil case. Aboard the ship, the emblem of the winged serpent on the crew's uniform has been featured in the legends of diverse cultures and civilizations all over the earth. The ancient god and legendary ruler of Mexico, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is said to have given men the calendar, arts, science, and government, and the symbol is still used in Mexico today. I spoke with Dr. Leo Sprinkle, says Ralph Blum, professor of psychology at the University of Wyoming. Dr. Sprinkle did the original time regression hypnosis sessions on Shermer for the Condon report. Sprinkle accepted the validity of Shermer's experiences. Dr. Leo Sprinkle said that Patrolman Herbert Shermer had the key to the future locked up in his brain. The crew leader's hand is on Shermer's shoulder. He says a word unlike any Shermer has ever heard before, then walks with him to the hatch. The two crew members who have remained outside climb aboard. Shermer gets back into the police cruiser and the legs of the ship retract. A reddish-orange light emits from the underside. There's a humming noise as the ship winds up and shoots up into the sky. Patrolman Herbert Shermer drives his cruiser back into Ashland. He arrives at the station about 3 a.m. He writes in the logbook all that he remembers of the past half hour. Quote, saw a flying saucer at junction of highways 6 and 63. End of quote. Perhaps he hesitates a moment, then adds, believe it or not. This close encounter case took place in Cennini, Italy, in 1954.
Rose Lottie was on her way to the local cemetery to lay flowers on the grave of her sister. It was early morning in the province of Arezzo, Italy, and Signora Lottie was taking a shortcut through the woods, walking barefoot and holding her stockings and shoes in her hands, along with the flowers. Beneath some trees at the edge of a clearing, she noticed a curious construction. It was about 6 feet high and 3 feet wide, shaped like a spindle, and apparently covered with smooth, gleaming leather. Two little men about 3 feet high suddenly emerged from behind the spindle. They wore gray overalls that extended downward to cover their feet, short cloaks fastened to their shoulders, and doublets with shiny buttons. Although they were the size of small children, their faces beneath their gray helmets were those of older men. Their short teeth protruded somewhat like those of rabbits. They signaled Signora Lottie in a friendly fashion, meanwhile chatting to each other in what sounded like Chinese. Liu Lei, Loya Lao, Liu. The older looking of the two men later reported was more jolly, laughing a great deal. She was impressed by their eyes, which appeared to be full of intelligence. They snatched away their carnations that Signora Lottie was carrying and one of her black stockings. When she indicated her distress, the older dwarf returned 2 of her flowers, then wrapped the rest in the stocking and tossed them into an opening in the spindle. Inside the spindle, Signora Lottie could see 2 small chairs, each with a porthole in front of it and what looked like controls. When the older dwarf reached inside and removed some round white packages, Signora Lottie ran away. Looking back several seconds later, she could still see the dwarfs and their strange spindle.
In this book, Out of This World, is a very exciting case that was uncovered in 1938. The story is called The Secret of the Humming Discs. High in the mountains of the Bayan Karaula on the borders of China and Tibet, a team of archaeologists were conducting a very detailed routine survey of the series of interlinked caves. Their interest had been excited by the discovery of lines of neatly arranged graves which contained the skeletons of what must have been a strange race of human beings. Strange because they had unnaturally spindly bodies and large, overdeveloped heads. It was while studying the skeletons that one of the team stumbled on a large round stone disc, half buried in the dust on the floor of the cave. The team gathered round the discovery, turning it this way and that way, and looked absurdly like a kind of Stone Age gramophone record. There was a hole in the center, and a fine spiral groove radiated to the rim. The object was a record, in more ways than one. Only nobody at that time, in 1938, possessed the key to the incredible message. The disc was labeled and filed away among other finds of the area. Even those who knew of its existence knew nothing of its meaning. Many experts tried to translate the hieroglyphics in the 20 years of the disc, and as it languished in Peking. They all failed. It was not until another professor, Dr. Tsum Nui, broke the code and started to decipher the speaking grooves. Dr. Nui broke the code, and the professor's conclusions on the meaning of the discs were so shattering that they were officially suppressed. The Peking Academy of Prehistory forbade him to publish his findings. 2 years later, in 1965, the professor and 4 of his colleagues were finally given permission to reveal their theory. It appeared under the long-winded but intriguing title, The Grooved Script Concerning Spaceships, which, as recorded on the discs, landed on Earth 12,000 years ago. The records, 716 of the grooved discs, were uncovered in the same caves, and they told an astonishing story of a space probe by the inhabitants of another planet which came to grief. The strange spiral script told how the peaceful intentions of the aliens had been misunderstood and how many of them had been hunted down and killed by members of the Ham tribe who lived in the neighboring caves. The Dropas came down from the clouds in their aircraft. Our men and women and children hid in the caves 10 times before sunrise. When at least they understood the sign language of the Dropas, they realized that the newcomers had peaceful intentions. Another section expressed regret by the Ham tribe that the alien spaceship had crash landed in such a remote and inaccessible mountains, and that there had been no way of building a new one to enable the Dropas to return to their own planet. In the years since the discovery of the first disk, archaeologists and anthropologists had learned more about the isolated area, and much of their information seems to corroborate with the bizarre story recorded on the disks. Legends still preserved in the area spoke of small, gaunt, yellow-faced men who came down from the clouds long time ago. The men had huge, bulging eyes and puny bodies, and were so ugly and repellent that they were hounded down by the local Ham tribesmen on horseback. This occurred approximately 12,000 years ago. The disks were found to contain large amounts of cobalt and other metallic substance. They vibrated or hummed in an unusual rhythm as though an electric charge were passing through them, or as one scientist suggested, as if they formed part of an electrical current. At some time, they had clearly been exposed to extraordinarily high voltage. This is an American astronaut. Perhaps the earliest space travelers also wore suits like this. This is a drawing of a prehistoric rock fresco in the Sahara Desert. It's in the Tassili region of the Sahara. It's called the Great Martian God. It and other painted figures in the area near Jabarin are also called roundheads and are at least 9,000 years old. With their bulbous heads, 2 eyes, but neither nose nor mouth, they appear to be some of the portraits of spacemen. Discovered by the French archaeologist Henri Loti, the paintings were so odd that members of this expedition dubbed them the Martians. Were they really ancient astronauts? Eric von Däniken and others say yes. This is another ancient astronaut drawing found in Fergana, Uzbekistan. And it's holding what seems to be one of the humming discs in their hand. These ancient astronauts are found in Eric von Däniken's Chariot of the Gods. This sketch was made in August 1947. The painter and writer R.L. Johannes encountered these 2 spaceship pilots in the hills of Italy This close encounter of the third kind is one of the earliest contacts to ever get international news coverage. This is a drawing of Xeno, Xeno, who had taken a woman in northeastern United States on board their ship, a hospital ship. And this was a gold medallion on his chest and a cord going all the way back to the ship. It was a hospital ship in August of 1965. And Druffel and D. Scott Rogo wrote the book The Tohunka Canyon Contacts, in which Sarah Shaw and Jane Whitley claimed that they were contacted by people from Jupiter. These are the beings that abducted them out of their home on October in 1978. The luminescent whitish ship that hovered over the trees in the gully about 150 yards away from their cabin. The ship looked like the planet with rings. This is a second drawing which she drew after her regression in October of 1978. This is the inside of the ship. One of the rooms in the craft, and the entity who seemed in charge. This mark on her body was the astrological sign for Jupiter. In his book, Aliens on Earth, Joshua Strickland writes about the Carl Higdon case and meeting an extraterrestrial from another planet, Osso's planet. In October the 25th, 1974, in Medicine Bow National Forest of Wyoming, Carl Higdon had his abduction experience with Osso, and he feels he was teleported to Osso's planet, into the spaceship behind him, which looked like a large cube. He was elk hunting. Osso's home planet was 163,000 light miles away. He returned safely 2.5 hours later. It was Friday night, about 4 o'clock, and Carl Higdon was hunting elk on the north ridge of Medicine Bow National Park. He saw 5 elk, raised his rifle and fired, but the bullet only went about 50 feet in front of him and dropped down to the ground. He went over, picked up the bullet, and tucked it into a fold in his canteen pouch. He heard a noise like a twig snapping and looked over to the right, and there in the shadow of the trees was this sort of man standing there. He described him as being 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing about 180 pounds. He was dressed in a black suit, black shoes, wore a belt with a star in the middle and a yellow emblem below it. He asked me if I was hungry, and I said yes. So he tossed me some pills, and I took one. The pill apparently slacked his hunger. Higdon said the man called himself Osso and asked Higdon if he'd like to go with him. Higdon replied yes. He pointed an appendage which seemed to come out of his sleeve, and suddenly Higdon found himself transported into a transparent cubicle along with Osso. He was sitting in a chair with bands around his arms. On some sort of console. He saw 3 levers in the ship, and they were different sizes, which Osso manipulated. Carl Higdon was taken to his planet, Osso's planet, where he saw several other human type of beings there, and they seemed to be conversing among themselves. He was outside of a tower, and they went up an elevator in a building, and in 2.5 hours was brought back. He was lost and hurt himself and was taken to the Carbon County Memorial Hospital in Rawlins, Wyoming. Psychologist Dr. R. Leo Sprinkle investigated the case, and Higdon agreed to additional interviews. One of our nearest planets is Alpha Centauri, and it's located in the constellation of Centaurus.
The figure shown in this picture is that of a man's head, trunk, and arms, coupled with a horse's body and legs. He is shown holding a level lance or spear and is situated over the Southern Cross.
This shows Alpha Centauri at the bottom of the front of the horse's foot. And this shows that it is in the Milky Way band going across the sky. This is one book called Star Wars by Richard Miller. And Richard Miller talks about being in contact with Soul Tech from the Alpha Centauri star system. Alpha Centauri is a star which is very close to our sun and possibly has planets around it, and like our sun does. The story of Richard Miller. In that year, 1948, Richard Miller was a skeptic of the whole subject of UFOs and flying saucers. At the particular time, he was in the Army Air Corps before it became known as the United States Air Force. On January 7, 1948, he happens to be in the operations room of the Scott Air Force Base in Belleville, Illinois. And an unidentified flying object was coming over Fort Knox, creating quite a stir. There's a lot of action taking place at the Goodman Air Force Base. Captain Mantle, Thomas Mantle, was flying his F-51 fighter with other planes following, chasing this UFO over Fort Knox. Captain Mantle gave his last report 3:18 in the afternoon. The one previous to that at 3:15 he said, it's still above me making my speed or better. I'm going up to 20,000 feet. If I'm no closer, then I'll abandon the chase. This is where the official Air Force account ends. However, there was one further radio transmission from Mantle at 3:18 that afternoon. His last statement has been stricken from all of the official records. He says, quote, "My God, I see people in this thing." That was his last actual comment. After that, the tower lost sight of Mantle and the object. They called Mantle repeatedly, on the radio, but didn't get an answer. 2 hours later, 5:50, Goodman received a telephone call from Stanford Air Force Base. They received a report from a farmer in Franklin, Kentucky, that the plane with a certain serial number had crashed on his farm, and the crash occurred at about 4:45.